Welcome back, everyone, to a new edition here of the MJ SportsCast. As usual, I'm joined by my host, Jerry Yang. This is Mike Tang. Jerry, how are you doing today?
Good, like the world of sports is never a dull moment, right? So we'll dig deep into it, but I'm kind of glad the Giant season's back. It kind of gives you a every day or every most day type of thing to watch, and I guess I didn't realize how much I missed baseball until it was back, you know. Now it's back, and we almost didn't have, the season makes you appreciate it even more. And the games have been pretty exciting so far, I thought. So how about you, man? Have you been watching any Giants baseball lately?
It's funny you mentioned how it's exciting to have baseball back. And I know we had a conversation this past weekend about the differences between, say, playing fantasy football and, say, playing fantasy baseball here. And you made a remark indicating that it's pretty tough to keep up, with the day-to-day activities of fantasy baseball.
Mhm.
Is it just because with fantasy football, it's more of like a weekly setup kind of thing here? Or is it something else in relation to it?
Yeah, it's mainly the weekly setup, right? I mean, you kind of look at your roster every day in fantasy football. But I think fantasy baseball, there's more you have to do on a daily basis, right? Like if I miss a day in fantasy football, it's not a huge thing because you're kind of setting your roster for the week, looking out for free agents maybe. Where versus I
Mhm.
think for fantasy baseball, depending on matchups, depending on who's out there, and the way the stats are accumulated too. Is a little bit different, right? Like you're kind of scoring on certain metrics, like strikeouts for pitchers or hits for batters. You're not really looking at, the individual players adding points up to form a full score for the week. You're kind of looking at the individual stats and hoping you have a balanced roster that will fill most of those stats, right? And to me, it's a little bit more challenging, especially to keep up with. I tried it one season. It was a lot of commitment, and I did a lot of work to try to do it, and I ended up ending. I think I was like in fourth place or something like that, right? So to me, I just didn't think it was worth my time to invest in it, versus like a football. I feel like it's lower commitment, and I'm seeing a lot more results from the little time I spent each day on it. I carve out maybe just 10 or 15 minutes a day, kind of keeping up with what's on the roster and things like that. And I was still able to win leagues, right? So I think that's a
What
fundamental
about
difference.
what about in fantasy football setting up a league where the settings are kind of similar to football, right? Where the managers can maybe only set their lineup for that week, not make any adjustments there. They can only make adjustments, say Sunday night or Monday morning, and then not being able to touch, your roster until the end of the week here, and also not being able to make waiver wire claims until maybe one day a week, or maybe you can kind of set that claim up there. It kind of gives the people, busy people, more room, as opposed to someone who's on their computer all day, able to claim players and everything. Would you be more open to something like that?
I think personally that would be really frustrating actually though, because I will try to I'll still look at it and then like really plan for whatever whenever those windows open. But then when I don't get it, it'll be like a bigger disappointment. And okay, I don't get it because I already know up front, and now I can plan the rest of the week to see what I do with my roster. So to me, I think it's a little bit more frustrating still. Like even for you know, setting the league's settings like that, because like you kind of, can't do anything about it in some ways, but yeah, but to your point though, it would be lower commitment. So I think I would actually warm up a little bit more to it than the current settings, right? But it'll still be a little frustrating, I think. So, and plus the length of the season is a
Yeah.
lot longer. It's just so long that it's kind of hard to keep up with everything
Yeah.
else.
I find the more enjoyable baseball settings are the ones where you're playing kind of a match, like a matchup base
Mm,
per week, similar to football, where you're matching up against another team here, as
I see.
opposed to just accumulating stats and being in a total standings
Yeah.
kind of setup. So just something to consider there for fans or people who are looking into fantasy baseball and are kind of reserved to it just because of how long the season is.
Mm.
I think it's kind of fun if you're able to put in some time into the game.
How many leagues are you in for fantasy baseball?
I'm only in that one league that you told me about here, so
Have you played in
I'm
previous
kind of
leagues?
similar to you, where I'm kind of trying to get back, and I was a little reserved about it before, just because of the time commitment and everything. But I think playing fantasy sports, it allows you to know the game a lot better. Here, you're kind of forced to, right? Because you're forced to know the players. You're forced to kind of
Right.
know, what other teams are doing besides your own hometown team, there. So it's definitely good for knowledge.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think to me it makes the sport more fun too, because you have that holistic view and know who are some of the best players and who are some of the worst players, the ones that might be overrated, but might be or vice versa, right? Where everyone doesn't think much of a player, but then in fantasy he's a superstar, right? And it gives you a new perspective to the game, I think.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about the news of the week, or maybe the non-news of the week, in relation to top wide receiver Debo Samuel here. And wide receivers in the past, specifically starting in the 90s, they've been known to be divas, right? And it
Mhm.
kind of goes back, you know, dating back to Jerry Rice, kind of yelling at Glenn Dickey in the locker room back in the days here. It kind of goes back to, days like Michael Irvin there. And also Terrell Owens is another player that we know all too well about his antics. But nowadays here, it seems like the modern player has adapted this passive aggressive approach in terms of letting the public know that it's not okay, that the stuff that's going on behind the scenes is not okay. So this is the approach I'm going to take here. What are your thoughts about Debo Samuel blacking out his images and all his social media posts about the 49ers?
Like, I think on one hand, I kind of understand it because a lot of people get injured in football, right? Like, football is a very dangerous sport. And, there's no guarantees that this whole year he'll stay healthy and bank on the fact that at the end of the season, he'll get a good contract, right? I think a lot of people now are leaning towards having a contract ready before their current contract ends, or get traded to a team and get that contract. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. I think what I read is 25 million is the magic number, and I think the Niners are trying to make it work. I think there was a lot of talks where Kyle was saying he was on the trading block and things like that. But then the things that came out today, they've declined all offers for trading Debo. So I think it goes to show that I think all this stuff is just posturing because we're in the off season, right? So I think people are kind of overreading into it a little bit. And the negotiations are happening. So I think Debo is just trying to create more leverage by removing the references of the Niners, But I guess on the other hand, to your point, some wide receivers are a little bit diva-ish, Like, why they had to do all this? All this stuff could have been behind the scenes, Like someone like, I think Russell Wilson is a good example where no one knew that he was unhappy really with the team. Like there was a lot of, backstage talks, but it was all like rumors, nothing confirmed. He hasn't confirmed it. His social media wasn't blacked out, right? And then he ended up getting traded to the Broncos, and then that was a surprise to everybody. But I thought he handled it professionally, right? I thought that was the way to go, where you kind of keep everything backstage and keep everything in house And then if you're dissatisfied, work it out directly with the people that can actually make the change. But I think Debo and Kyler Murray, I think, was the first to do it, to take out the social media, was trying to create some leverage for themselves, and trying to kind of take advantage of a situation where they're trying to get fans on their side, right? And I think it works. I think right now Debo has some leverage, right? And he is one of the best players on the team. And last season, you can argue he was probably the best wide receiver next to Cooper Cup, right? Definitely stat wise, he's up there. So, but to me, I think it'll be a big loss to lose him, obviously, because he means a lot to the team, right? Like he has the running back potential, he has the wide receiving potential. So we'll see how it goes, but I think he'll be back. I think all this is just posturing for extra years or extra dollars. So, what do you think?
Yeah. It's tough for the 49ers because they're probably looking at how much money they can spend, right? Especially after having some of the top rated players at some of the key positions here. Kyle Juszczyk is a fullback. He's not getting paid a lot, but he's the top paid fullback in his position class. You have Trent Williams. You also have Kittle as one as well here. And then you're going to have Nick Bosa that you're going to have to pay as, a premium for his services. So I think the 49ers are probably asking themselves, can they just get another cheap wide receiver in the draft, drop them in the first or second round here and not have to pay top dollar, for a wide receiver like that? We saw what happened with the Chiefs, right? With Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs decided to go that direction in which they didn't want to pay him top dollar. We saw what happened with Minnesota Vikings a couple years back with Stephon Diggs. They decided, okay, well, you want to walk? Go ahead and walk. And we're just going to draft Justin Jefferson in the first round the following year. And they haven't really missed a beat with that position group. So we can also argue that wide receiver is easily replaceable in addition to the running back position. And it also helps that this wide receiver class is pretty darn good from what I'm hearing. So I'm not sure if Deebo Samuel has a lot of leverage, in my opinion.
Well, do you think
He's
he can
probably
replace?
getting a lot of.
Do you think he can
I don't know
replace?
about replacing his skill talent, but I do think you can find someone to be as productive as Deebo Samuel. And I would also say Deebo Samuel hasn't been the healthiest player on the roster either, So we don't know how his health is going to hold up in the upcoming years. So combine that with how, wide receivers, come a dime a dozen nowadays. You combine that with his health status. It's kind of tough to think that we're going to pay him more than 30 million, maybe in that 20-25 million dollar range, but I think he's looking for more than that.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, I think it sets a bad precedence, though, that you do so well last season and you don't get rewarded for it, right? I think that's always been kind of the argument to not to do it. And to me, I feel like something will get done, right? Like I think there was a lot of rumors last season about Fred Warner and his contract and not, renewing him, and there's a lot of leverage, and then the contract got done, right? And same with George Kittle, right? There was a lot of talks there about trade. Even this season, I think people are still talking about trading George Kittle, right? Which I think is pretty silly to say. But that contract got done. So I think we'll wait and see. And maybe you're right. He doesn't have the leverage that he thinks he has. But I do know most teams will want him. I think he's desirable. So if the Niners want to make a trade, there's going to be a lot of suitors out there, and it could be a package like the Tyreek Hill one where we get a lot of draft picks back. We lost a lot because of Lance, right? And now we might get some back if that's the direction they decide to go with.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if there's a whole lot of suitors. I know the one team that could have wanted him acquired Tyreek Hill not too long
Yeah.
ago, and that was the Miami Dolphins there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what specific team will want Debo, but he's definitely one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. and people will definitely listen. But will the Niners get a first round draft pick? Probably, right? For a guy
Yeah.
like Deebo Samuels. But hoping that he stays, because honestly, what he does on the offensive side of the ball, it's pretty hard to duplicate, right? So
Yeah,
um,
I feel like the Niners need another receiver, right? Like even if they do keep Debo, you have Brandon Ayuk there, who's kind of your number one. Then you have Debo for the speed, but they're kind of missing like a slot guy, you know. So I think they've tried like Trent Taylor and a few other guys, and maybe Juan Jennings is trying to be that guy, but they're still missing, I think, another core piece of the wide receiving core. So I think both might be true, right? They might keep Debo and draft a wide receiver potentially. So we'll see.
yeah, it really reminds me of the DeForest Buckner situation, right? We never thought Buckner was going to get moved, and he ended up getting traded, surprisingly, and that shook up the whole locker room. And I think the players remember that. I'm sure Debo Samuels remembers that pretty clearly here. But I just think the way he's approaching the situation and blacking out his 49ers references on social media, it's just such childish play, you know. And as a fan, it's a real turnoff, right? To see a player that you enjoy watching on TV do that, you know, because honestly, you're making millions of dollars here. You're making way more than, you know, the average person living in California, yet you're complaining, you know, about, you know, money in that aspect. So it's just very frustrating to watch as a fan.
No, I agree, right? Because I mean, like I said, professionally, he should have done that. It just feels so modern, doesn't it? Like, if it weren't for social media, this wouldn't even be a discussion, really. You know, like, what does he do? Point to the news? He's not going to do that, right? So, so I think it's just the day and age we live in, and I guess it could be worse, right? Like, he could straight out tweeted something bad about the Niners, but instead it was just more of a subtle hint, I guess, right, that you put in.
Yeah, maybe we're making too much of a big deal out of it, right? As fans and also the media. But gosh, it definitely shook, you know, the NFL world for that few
Mm,
days that he did it.
yep, yep, yep. I think
What
something
are
will
your
get
thoughts
done.
about the current 49ers signings here? You know, they ironically they signed a couple wide receivers after that happened. Malik Turner and Marcus Johnson, two guys that, you know, I haven't heard much about here. They haven't had too many receptions in their career, but anything that you made out of it from your end, I just saw it as practice squad, you know,
So I'm
type
thinking,
signing. You know, adding more depth to the team.
yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Just adding depth to the team, you know. I think they're just kind of trying those guys out, seeing if anyone becomes like a hit, right? I think Mohamed Sanu's probably not coming back to the team. They're trying to work something out with Juan Jennings as well. I think something will get done, but if not, maybe one of these guys will be that Juan Jennings type. But none of these guys are a replacement for Debo, right? Like obviously, I think some people were reading into it because of the timing of the situation, but to me, it's what you said. I think these guys are just practice players, you know. And maybe we'll find a gem in the rough there, but most likely it's just going to be adding more depth. That's it. So
In more sobering news, you know, Dwayne Haskins, a quarterback here with the NFL, he passes away, got hit by a truck, it looks like, on the freeway. But most notably about this was the tweet that was sent out by Adam Scheffler in regards to this news here. So that he tweets out um, about what happened, and then he ends the tweet with some statistics or maybe Dwayne Haskins stats. And the Twitter world really blew up on Adam Scheffler to the point where I think Adam Scheffler even removed that part of the tweet and had to redo it again. Here, were you able to take a look at that
yeah,
when it happened?
he apologized too, which is like another step, you know, in that direction. I guess first I'll talk about Dwayne Haskins, then I'll talk about the tweet. Like it's super sad, right? Like 24 years old.
Yeah.
He was in, I think, Florida, practicing with some of the other players. out there. Like he even tweeted or on Instagram posted something with Najee Harris. So he was kind of hanging out with him the day before that happened. But there's a lot of questions actually on the passing of him. Like what was he doing on the freeway? Like what was the situation there? I think there was another driver that noticed him like moments before it happened that he was on the side of the freeway, trying to get to the other side, and people weren't sure why.
Hmm.
Right? Like actually I think a lot of mystery surrounding his death. Like what was the whole situation there? I think it was the middle of the night as well,
Oh,
and how did the dump truck not see him, right? That's also another huge thing. But I think in general, being on the freeway is really dangerous, right? It goes without saying. And so, like we just don't know what happened. Did his car break down? Did he get an argument with someone, so he was on the freeway? I don't know if more will come out. I know last article I read, CHP is kind of investigating his death, but super sad. I think what was really touching to me was the other players kind of tweeting about it. Like I think some of his other teammates, like Claypool, that's one that really hits home, right? Like he was like really, devastated by the whole situation, and same with the head coach Tomlin, right? Like he was with the Steelers when this happened, so like it's really heartwarming to hear the players talk about how important he was, and also really tragic to know that he, passed away at 24. Right, it's super young age. And I guess coming back to the tweet, well, like the cancel culture is real, dude. Like, I think Schefter was, after seeing all the players being super devastated, I thought the tweet was insensitive. I can see why he did it because he was trying to report on it. He was looking at it from a sports lens and from a reporter lens. So he was saying it was like a struggling player, right? It was like the key word that really triggered everyone. A struggling quarterback, and it gave some stats, like you said. So I think that part really showed a lot of fans that he doesn't care about Haskins as a person. Like all the stuff I said about how tragic it is as a 24-year-old. I think none of
mhm.
that really registered to him. He just saw a name on a team that passed away, right? Like it could have been the way you reported. It's almost like a fantasy player that passed away or something. Like it wasn't. It was pretty cold. I thought. Should he have been
Yeah.
canceled for it though? I felt like you know the reaction to it to me was a little bit over the top as well. um, Especially when he realized he made a mistake and redid it. People still gave him so much heat for it and wanted to cancel him. I think he lost like a lot of subscribers, because he did that too. A lot of follows on his Twitter account. Um, is it justified? I don't know, right? I think people have to judge for themselves if it's justified. But for me, I thought it was, unprofessional in the sense that it was heartless, but also professional in the sense that he is a sports reporter, so
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good points there. I couldn't have said it any better. I just thought he made a mistake. Um, he he probably was in that professional mindset when he tweeted
yeah,
that there, and he just couldn't. That's just his default way of reporting things, right? Where you report something and then you end it with some statistics to kind of inform the audience of who the player is.
right. Yeah, I mean, he was on that mode, obviously, right? And keep in mind, he's probably working a lot on stats for other players and things like that. So he might have been in that mindset and hasn't even thought about what he just tweeted out. But I hope in the future he takes this into account. Maybe it's a good lesson for him to learn. But in terms of punishment, a lot of people are like, "Oh, ESPN should suspend him and stuff." I don't think so. I think it was a mistake. You kind of have to just move on. I think it's an
Yeah.
overreaction. If they do anything, in my opinion. So
Let's kind of talk about the NBA. The playoffs are finally here. Feels like forever, right? Since since the Warriors have been back. But it's been a couple years because the play-in game last year doesn't really count as playoff games according to the
yeah,
NBA. So the Warriors will be back after a 2-year hiatus. They are officially the number 3 seed in the Western Conference, and they will be playing the Denver Nuggets here, and they'll be playing at home, right, for the first 2 games. But the thing that's kind of concerning to Warriors fans right now is the status of Stephen Curry's um, playability here. Do you think he's going to play at all in the first game or two, or do you think it's going to be the typical Warriors way where they're going to rest him for the first 2 games and try to ease him in for game 3 or game 4?
I mean, I kind of hope so, right? Because the last thing we want is to rush him back and he gets hurt again, you know? I mean, we kind of learned that with the Kevin Durant situation. Rushing people back isn't the way to go, right? But I'm curious on how well the Warriors will do without him. You know, I think lately Clay has been heating up. Jordan Poole has been looking great. The matchup with the Nuggets is tough, though, right? I'm not sure how well we match up with them without Curry, but having that home advantage does help. So I think that's going to be key to this whole situation. I think we'll have to monitor practice. A lot of people are saying he's actually could practice this week. And if he does, that's looking promising, right? That maybe he might be back in time for at least game 2. To me, I feel like game 1 he's probably gonna be out. I don't see him recovering and being ready by Thursday. If he hasn't even stepped into the practice court yet today. So we'll see if we can get him sooner. But what do you think? I don't think we should rush him personally. So
Well, it's going to be a different story if we're down 2-0 to the Nuggets, right? And then fans will be like, okay, well, maybe Curry should have been playing game 1 or game 2 here, so we won't be losing the playoff series at all. But
right.
I think this matchup against the Nuggets is as good as it gets for the Warriors here, just because the Nuggets are missing Jamal Murray, and they're also missing Michael Porter Jr. too. Here, I don't think Porter Jr. is going to play in this series. Jamal Murray sustained a torn ACL, I believe, and that was against the Warriors earlier this season. Here, so basically, it's really Joker,
Right.
just
Mhm.
Joker's team, for the Nuggets. And
Yeah.
I think the Warriors match up pretty well with that. I think they're just going to load up Draymond and Looney against him here and just kind of make everyone else beat you. And I just think the Warriors have enough offensive power to win out in this series.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot better than we thought in the last 6 games, right? I think our prediction was like 3-3 or possible 4-2, but they ended up going 5-6, so or 5-1, right? So it's they're heating up at the right time, and I'm kind of happy and kind of praising Kevon Looney for being able to play all 82 games. This is his first season being able to do that, right? And he's been huge for the Warriors. Like without Wiseman there, he's been playing a lot of minutes in that center position. He's been doing a lot better. Maybe it's a new coach that came in and kind of revised his career, and maybe it's also some of the training staff to keep him healthy. But he's looking a lot better. We definitely will need him, especially with Wiseman not being there. That's our only big man, right? But I think the strategy really is to go small ball, though, right? So it might be need him and not need him at the same time. So
Yeah, I think we'll definitely need him against Jokic there. But I like our chances against their supporting cast. Basically, it's Jokic and a bunch of other players. There's really no star players other than him. So I really like our
don't
chances.
they
I
have
think
Aaron
Jordan
Gordon?
Poole will have some pretty big games
Hmm.
coming up too, and hopefully we can have Wiggins out there, playing well. But something to kind of look out for was Mike Malone. He did the hack a Looney thing in the last game, and
Mhm.
that really slowed up the Warriors in the fourth quarter. So that may be something to kind of keep an eye on there. Um, Guys that he'll probably hack is Kevon Looney. Wiggins has been struggling, been very inconsistent from the free throw line there. Draymond Green could be another target there. So be on the lookout for the Hakaluni kind of deal, which kind of sucks as Warriors fans, but it's something that Mike Malone implemented in the last game, and it definitely worked to slow down the Warriors.
It's also kind of sucks to watch on TV, right? I think that
Yeah.
hack rule is like the worst television you can watch. You know, the Nuggets do have Aaron Gordon still, don't they, on the team, and Jeff Green. I guess that's two guys we might have to account for, but I think you're right. It'll be the return of DeMarcus Cousins as well. You know, like how
Mhm.
impressive is that guy being like lately being able to sneak into the playoffs with different teams, you know? Like that must be a great feeling as well, you know. But yeah, we should be I like our chances, so we'll have our prediction later, but it's gonna be a series at least having the number 3 seed or at least with a good matchup, right? So
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to Major League Baseball here. So the opening day weekend has concluded, and the Giants, they took 2 out of 3, and I think that's what we predicted, right, on the last
yep,
show.
yeah, we did.
Yeah, we predicted 2 out of 3 there. The first game was kind of a thriller slash mistake prone type of game in which I think we blew the lead, right? Didn't we
Yeah,
blow
we
the lead
did.
on that
Yeah.
first game? And then we also had Dubon have a mental mistake in the base paths in the 10th inning there, getting thrown out, trying
Yeah.
to I don't know what he was trying to do, but he wasn't even trying to tag up, right? He was
Yeah.
in between tagging up and having a little bit of a lead going into third base. But if you guys saw the play, gosh, it was such a frustrating thing to watch. But
Mental block, you know what I mean? But we still came out winning, right, for that game?
still came out, and Joint Kuiper had a really nice call when Austin Slater hit that double or single to
Yeah,
drive in Darren Ruff, right? And if you
yeah.
haven't heard that call, go look it up. But he basically references, was it what Big Darren Ruff is on
Yeah.
the move? Darren
Yeah.
Ruff's on the move.
It was pretty funny to watch him run the bases considering how, not he's not the fastest guy on the team, like, probably the slowest guy, I would say. I have a few friends who said it would have been funny to see him trying to run against Pablo and see who was faster. It's that type of speed that we're looking at. But Ruff
I
got
don't
it
think
done.
he's really that honestly, I don't think he's really that slow, Jerry. I think like he's
Yeah,
deceptively fairly fast for his size, right? And it wasn't like that ball was deep into the left field
that's
corner,
true.
right? It
Yeah,
was it was I think it just hit the wall on the bounce and he scored, but if it was a clean exchange there with the catcher, I think he would have been thrown out, right? But
yeah.
to make it that close for a guy his size to score from first base, I thought that was pretty impressive.
That's true. He did round the bases there, right? So I guess I should give him more credit than that. But it was a fun win. I thought out of all the wins, that was the most fun to watch on opening day. So I think Rodon looked really hot in the second game. Unfortunately, we still lost. But man, 12 Ks and 89 pitches. That's some heat that you're bringing there. So you think the ballpark had anything to do with that, or is it all on him?
I think it's all him, to be honest with you. Well, the guy hit 98 miles per hour
Mm,
more than 2 or 3 times
yeah.
there. And the last guy to really do that's Tim Lincecum, right?
Yeah.
Back in like 2009 era. So I think he's going to be pretty darn good. I think health is, of course, going to be the key thing for a guy like Rendon. But gosh, I think his contract is really friendly for him because he has the option, right? If he does really well, he could just opt out of that
Right.
contract and get a long-term contract elsewhere. But if he doesn't do well or he does very mediocre the rest of the way, he can just opt in for that
Yeah.
20+ million a year deal for next season. So as
Mhm.
Giants fan, I'm like just in between because I'm like I really want him to do well, but if he does too well, he's leaving, right? So
I
do
know
you have
that's
that sense too? Like when you see a contract like that?
no, I no, because I feel like he needs to do well. Like that's the ideal situation. Because if he does well, that means the Giants will go pretty far in this run, right? Like, I'm not gonna look in the future without seeing the current, so I'm gonna root for the current, hoping he does well. Best case scenario, we make it to the World Series, possibly win it, and then he has no choice but to re-sign with us because who brought him the ring? So you can also look at it from that standpoint too. That hey, if he's doing well, the
Hey,
rest
but
of the
but
team's
what we've
gonna be
seen before, winning the World Series doesn't
true.
necessarily being re-signed by the same team. That's what we saw with Freddie Freeman with the Braves, right? That guy led
Yeah,
that team to the championship and
right.
was still kind of
Right.
shipped out of town in a
Yeah,
sense,
yeah.
right? So
No, I get
I
it, I
think
get
best
it.
case scenario is Rendon, he leads us to a World Series championship, and then the Giants re-sign him to a long-term contract.
So even if he doesn't re-sign with us and he brings us to the World Series for one season, we see like a really hot pitcher. I think it's worth it, right? I mean, would you really trade that for a guy who's mediocre that's signed here long term? So I
Right.
wouldn't trade that. I'd rather have a guy that's hot for one season, even like a rental that can take us far and have fun games to watch like this one. So and I thought a funny quote that I saw, I think on Twitter, was that he pitched like Lincecum but got a Matt Cain result, losing 2-1. Because remember, Matt Cain did that a lot. He had like great pitches, but Giants would still lose the game. But hopefully this is a one timer and things will be good. Do you think Ramos's debut is going to be something that we're going to look forward to for the rest of the season, or was that a one timer? What do you think?
No, I think he's here to stay. To have a player come up this quickly in the season here, and his talent, I think he's going to do well in the big leagues. Um, he's not super athletic on the base paths, right? But he's a big body, right? He's going to generate a lot of power. I just think with this day of age and how everyone is applauding launch angle and everything, I think Ramos is going to do. He's going to do really well. That's all I'm really looking forward to. I think the future is bright with him and Joey Bart here on the roster. I like our chances a lot better. I don't know if it's just because we won 2 out of 3. I know we lost against the San Diego Padres on Monday here, but to be honest, looking at Rendon and seeing how our bullpen is really good, I think you have solid starting pitching and you also have a solid bullpen. I think you're going to win a lot of games here. Is that what you saw as well?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I think that's why I'm kind of excited for this season. I'm I'm kind of glad that we're trying to get it done with some of the younger guys and trying to see what guys can do and not do. And it's good to, especially Joey Bart. He looks a lot more confident out there. I think now he's not really trying to live up to, the posy expectations anymore. He's kind of playing his own game, right? So and I didn't see a big drop off on the pitching with him. Like obviously, with Rodon did it, and overall, I think the bullpen still needs a lot of work. That's a part where I'm a little bit still worried about. Like what the Padres lost yesterday, it was on the bullpen. The bullpen couldn't keep it together, and same with the first game. So I think we need to clean that up. If we can get that into a state where the bullpen's doing better, then I like our chances a lot. Right, I think that's the only real weakness now. The bats are obviously heating up in a couple of these games now, so we'll see.
It's a long season, guys. It's only 4 games in here, so we can't really overanalyze it at this point. I think what I told you, Jerry, is kind of see it every 20, 30 games, right? Maybe after 30 games, evaluate and see how the team is doing. And then we can kind of chastise them, for their talent or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true, right? Because it's like we could overreact after another 2-game losing streak or something. You know what I mean? That's how sports is with this stuff. But yeah, like you said, baseball's a pretty long season. So
All right, let's move on to our picks of the week.
All right, picks of the week. We have 2 or 3 picks actually, because I'm gonna add another one in there.
Okay.
So let's pick tonight's game with the Padres versus the Giants. Yu Darvish pitching for the Padres, and Alex Cobb pitching for the Giants at home. The odds are pretty even for this game, right? It's like -110 for both teams. So that means it's basically a 50-50 split here. Who do you have?
Okay. So looking at this game here, I think the Giants will bounce back, and I believe it is City Connect's night, right? It's a Jersey
Yes.
City Connect night.
I
So
knew you were gonna bring that up.
hey, it's Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night, and we're at home. So I think it is City Connect night. And
Yes, it
usually
is.
that's winning night. So I'm going to factor that into it. And I just think the Giants will be able to hit you, Darvish, okay, since he's a right-hander, and they'll be able to, stack up some lefties in the lineup against him. And Alex Cobb, um, he has something to prove with the Giants too. So he's going to be pitching at home. He's going to be pitching on Tuesday night here. I think he's going to be pitching pretty well, maybe around 5 innings or so here, and give it to the bullpen. So I think I'm going to go with the Giants on that first game. What about you?
Yeah, man, that City Connect Jersey argument's pretty solid, dude. Like, that's hard to argue with. So I think I'm also gonna go with the Giants. I just don't think Yu Darvish has the stuff anymore. And like you said, Alex Cobb. This is the game that we'll kind of see a preview of for the rest of the season. Like depending on how he does. I mean, he can still ramp up, obviously, because it's early. But I think he can get it done. So I'm gonna go with the Giants here. All
All
right.
right.
Before we move on to the next game, What's Up G commented, said, Mike, you're beating me in fantasy. I guess you're playing What's Up G in fantasy this week. And then he also says, Giants for the win. Yes, for the win.
Hey, it's auto draft is for the win, right? Like
Oh, you auto drafted? Oh,
I
come
accidentally auto drafted and forgot about the draft that happened
on.
here, but I really liked What's Up G's formatting of the league here. He put it into two separate standings here, kind of like the West and East, and then he did a head-to-head matchup, which was pretty nice
Yeah.
there. So that was a pretty cool setup that I saw. So that kind of gave me the idea to bring it up to you in the beginning of this
That
episode.
makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a way better setup than what I'm used to in the past. All right, second game we're gonna pick is gonna be the last game with the Padres. Padres is pitching out Shamanea versus the Giants, who is pitching out Logan Webb, and the odds have Giants as a favorites. Right, it's -120 versus a +110 for the Padres. So Vegas thinks the Giants have it. How say you?
This sounds like a rubber match, right? Like the third out of third game out
Yeah,
of this
yeah,
matchup.
yeah.
So, Sean Manaea has been pretty inconsistent throughout his career, dating back with the A's here, and I'm not sure, what kind of Sean Manaea is going to show up. He can be lights out for the first 2 innings or so, and then start struggling for the next 2 or 3 here. And for that, I think the Giants will be able to capitalize, even though he is a lefty, and we kind of struggle against left-handed pitching at times. But gosh, we have our horse out there, Logan Webb. He looked pretty good in that opener. I think he's going to bounce back with another strong outing. So I'm going to pick the Giants to beat the Padres in that third game of the series. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, this one's tough, right? Because I think I agree with you. Logan Webb is the better pitcher, and we'll know what Menea's going to do. But the bullpen's been rocky, and sometimes I feel like they kind of rest on their laurels a little bit when they see a guy like Webb out there, kind of like what we saw a little bit with Rodon, and all that stuff, right? They held up okay actually with Rodon, but still, it's just they've been a little bit rocky. Hopefully, guys are going to settle down a little bit more for that game. But the Padres, I don't think it's that great. They've always been known to kind of choke a little bit, especially in these rubber matches, right? So yeah, I'll go with Webb. I feel like this is not the game I would pick, if I had a choice, just because rubber matches are tough, because it's usually the last game of the series, or it is the last game of the series, and guys show up unexpectedly, and that's often the difference in the game, right, or in the series. So yeah, we'll see, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Giants. I have some confidence, and I think that's gonna be the theme of the season. Just win series, right? Like be consistent on winning these matchups and these series, and I think the Giants will go pretty far by doing that. So
Yeah, I think win the series. Have strong pitching. Both on the starting end and also on the back end there, and just play mistake-free baseball, right? Until guys like Wade and Evan Longoria come back.
yep. Okay, so last pick we're gonna do. We don't have the game yet because it's on Thursday, so we're just gonna pick the series. So the Warriors at home, hosting the Nuggets, right, in the 7 game series. So they have the home advantage, rather. So Vegas has the odds actually at -200 for the Warriors to advance, right? And the Denver Nuggets are underdogs at +170. I guess first off, who do you think wins the series, and what is you think the final score for the series?
Hmm. Okay, I think the Warriors have an edge in this series. I know we talked about it earlier in the episode how Jokic is kind of by himself in an island with that Nuggets team. Yeah, he has guys like Aaron Gordon and I think Nick
Yeah.
Batum as well. But he just doesn't have enough talent around him, and I think the Warriors have an, enough firepower, and they will develop a defensive system to let Jokic get his numbers on the offensive end here, but not allow the Nuggets other players get hot. So I'm going to pick the Warriors here. I'm trying to figure out what the final count will be. I think they're going to split the first 2 games, at home, and then Curry will come back in game 3 here. And then I think the Warriors will be able to win this series in 6 games. So I'm going to pick Warriors 4-2 over the Nuggets. What do you think?
So is this series 2-3-2 now? Is that the format, or is it 2-1-1-1?
That I can't confirm with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so depending on that, right? I'm feeling yeah, this is hard. This is such a hard game to pick, or a hard series to pick, because we don't know if Curry's coming back and for what game. I'm assuming he's going to be back for the playoffs, but then at the same time, I'm not sure what game he's going to be back in.
Mhm.
But I do like your Warriors in 6. I'm just gonna be somewhat conservative, mainly because the playoffs are a tougher game. It's a tougher overall in terms of play, right? So, oh man, this is tough. I'm gonna go with Warriors in 7. How's that? I'll be a little bit more conservative than you. I think you do have a good point though, right? I think the Warriors in 6 is pretty good. And I just confirmed it's 2-2-1-1. So it's gonna be yeah. So it's gonna be two at home, 2 on the road, and then back at home on the road, and then back at home if needed to end the series. So yeah, I guess I'll take Warriors in 7. Worst case scenario, right? I think they're gonna win it back at home and move on. And what's up, G agrees with you. He says Warriors in 6. So there you go. Some confidence in that pick. I like it. So I think it'll be a fun series overall. Pretty happy. The Warriors are back in. What do you think, dude? Well, like, how would you describe like this whole situation? Right? It's felt like a roller coaster this season.
Yeah, I just think they're really streaky right now. We don't know what kind of Warriors team will show up, and that's why we're not picking them in 4 or 5 games. right?
Right.
We're picking them in 6 or 7 games to win. So I just think they're going to show up game 1. I'm not too sure how they're going to show up in game 2 or game 3 here, but we definitely want Curry back. I think he's really the key to the whole engine, right? But if Curry doesn't come back this series, do you think the Warriors will win?
Dude, that's a question I've been asking myself nonstop, right? Because on one hand, you do have Clay and Draymond. You know, you have Iguodala, lots of experience there, but then you also have guys like Kaminga, Poole, and a few other guys that haven't been there before. You know, so you're kind of balancing experience with youth. You know, I think they'd still pull it out because, like the reasons you said, right? I think Jokic is the one man show essentially. You know, like Aaron Gordon's there, but he also needs a guy to kind of get him going. Um, and the Warriors tend to figure it out, especially in a 7 game series, on how to beat someone, especially a team that's worse than them, right? Teams that are a little bit better than them, which aren't many, you know. I think in the past has always been like the Cavs or a few other teams that are better than them, you know. But teams that are lower in the lower seed or have more offensive deficiencies, the Warriors defense tend to step it up, you know.
Yeah.
So I think Warriors in 6 or 7 is pretty accurate, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Our shout out of the week is to What's Up G. Thanks
Was
for
it G?
commenting on a week in and week out basis. We really do appreciate it here. And please click that subscribe button if you can on YouTube or whatever audio version that you're listening to here. Do you have any final thoughts before the Warriors play the Nuggets this week?
No, let's go Giants, go Warriors, and you know we'll click subscribe to our channel.
All right. Well, that is a wrap, guys. We will tune in next time. Take care.